Okay, thank you. So first, let me introduce Data Impacta. We mentioned that we are part of Data Impacta, but let me tell you about it. If it's okay if I share my screen, you can see it. Just check, but please tell me, Pablo, if I do this, do you see it?
Yes, it's okay.
The screen, okay, perfect, thank you. And please, if someone tells something in the chat, I'm not seeing it, so please let me know, thank you. So like I mentioned, Data Impacta, let's first introduce Data Impacta. We are a consulting firm. We work in data science for social good projects. This means that we work with NGOs, the public sector, enterprises, companies that work on sustainability, triple impact enterprises. So these are the type of projects that we really love to work with. We have worked with gender equality issues, conservation in the environment, and healthcare, and in this case about transparency. So this is what we are going to tell you about. So if you do share with, like we do, these values, and you think that the technology and the data can and should be used for the greater good, we invite you to visit our webpage and also to follow us on LinkedIn. And please drop us a line if you are part of the AI for Good movement or data science for social good. We will love to know you and to share ideas. It's all super useful. So yeah, that will be our introduction. Let's jump straight into the project and the problem we are going to discuss today. We're going to tell you about the solution we built together for one of our clients. Like Maggie mentioned, this is about unveiling provider-government relationships. And let's start with the problem. Let me tell you about it first. So how do governments buy goods and services they need to function on a regular basis? They make tenders, public tenders, in which providers, which are companies or individuals, make a bid and say, I'm going to provide you this good or services you need. And they go into a selection process, and if they win, they got the contract and they start to provide the service or the goods, okay? And so what happens with this is that you have, in a given year, a lot of contracts. And these contracts make relationships between the providers, the companies, and the government. But how are these relationships? How do they evolve in time? Are the same providers provided to many agencies? Are the agency buying for just a bunch of suppliers? So these kind of questions were the type of questions that our client had. Ultimately, what they wanted was to unveil what was the structure of the public and private sector relationship in order to help them to make more transparent purchasing processes. So that was their goal. So the client came to us with this problem and these many questions about how to understand how this structure works. And so we built together with the client a solution in which we, on one side, analyze patterns in the data using Neo4j technology, of course, but also made a tool in which the client was able to analyze and visualize the data by themselves so that he could play with the data. And so this is the solution. What I'm going to present you now, this is just a screenshot of the dashboard. It is a Neo-Dash dashboard. Neo-Dash is part of the Neo4j technology, and it has a bunch of tabs. Like any dashboard in a web page, you enter inside a link, you click inside the link, you go into the dashboard, and the first thing you see is this tab. In this tab, what you have is the scorecards. The scorecards at the top of it summarize information about the graph. For example, how many suppliers in any given period, how many agencies, how many contracts, or the amount of the contract, the minimum contract, the maximum contract, and this type of things. And then beneath it, then you will see the plot, actually the graph, the network. Okay, so this was the first tab in the web page. The second tab shows the evolution of some of the network. On some part of it, actually what we did was focus on some agencies that the client cared about. And what I wanted to see was how the structure evolved in time. And I'm going to tell you about this later on, but you click a play button and you will see it, like how it moves and how many suppliers appear that are new and how others drop and I do not provide that service anymore. And the third tab, it's about communities. We run the community detection algorithm that I'm going to tell you about later, and we end up classifying communities in 3 types. And what we see here, this is something that the client wanted to spot, like what were the communities that were formed between suppliers and the agencies. So this is the last step that we are showing. But actually, how was the journey? Because we had the problem, they had the problem and the questions, all the questions the client had, and we ended up having this visualization tool. But there was a really funny, sometimes hard journey from one thing to another. And we are going to walk you through all this journey and tell you about it and how we did and all these steps to end up having this dashboard. So the first thing is the data. Let's talk about the data, of course. So the first time is data. We have the data that came from a relational database. This was stored in a SQL database. And what we had there were tables that in each table, in each row in the table, we will have a contract with the name and the code of the provider, the supplier, the agency that was buying this good or service, the amount of money, the quantity of goods provided if they were goods, the type of service, the date in which the contract was executed, and many other information related to that contract. And this was the data that we had at the beginning. The second step that we focused on was the data model. So we have this data and we have the questions, but we needed to, in order to analyze it from a graph perspective, we needed to make a data model. Which will be the entities, which will be the nodes, which will be the edges in this network. And it was not a straightforward answer. Actually, we need to have many discussions with the customer and within our team. Like, for example, there are consortiums. This means companies that present together to bid and to win a contract. Are these important? Are they part of the analysis? Do you care about consortiums? If you do care about consortiums, should we treat them as nodes or attributes? Do you care about the agency sector? Which attributes are important? Anyway, so all these questions came back and forth, and we used the arrows.app, which is a Neo4j also tool. It was really easy because it's like a blackboard where you draw nodes and edges and you connect them. So it's really easy to have discussions about the data model. So once we agree on the data model, we went to the next step, which is the ETL process, the extract, transform, and load. And for this, we use Python. We imported the tables into Python. We make transformations so that we transform all this structure into nodes, the attributes of the nodes, the edges, and the attributes of the edges into a CSV file in a way that it was structured correctly to be imported inside Neo4j. And the next step was actually importing it. And we mentioned it because it was super easy. We use the data import tool inside Neo4j, in which you click on the file, that you want to import, and you redraw the data model that we did in the previous slide. So it was really easy to indicate which of the columns were nodes, which were attributes, we were edges, and just click on import, and that was it. Voila! We have the graph inside Neo4j. We transformed the tables into a graph. And now that we did have the network inside Neo4j, what we did was the analysis. And really, for the first part of it, we use a lot of Cypher query language, which is really similar to SQL, was really easy to use. And with this Cypher query analysis, we started to answer some of the questions. Which is the provider that has many contracts? Which is the agency that all the time changes the provider? And these kind of questions. Also to describe the network, like how many providers do we have, how many connections, like this kind of questions. Then we moved on to data science. And we use the data science library inside Neo4j for community detections. And like I mentioned before, we ended up showing this in the visualization tool. And what we did here was to group the communities based on some patterns that were important for the problem that we wanted to, or the insight we wanted to have. So one of the type of communities where the agencies had very few providers. This was especially the case for municipalities, for example, very small. So they really buy very few things. And then we have others in which the one provider provides to many agencies. This was very interesting, this type of communities. And in the third group, we have agencies buying for very different providers. And yeah, that were like the three groups of community that were really interesting. And then we did more analysis on those. Then, so let's recapitulate a little bit. So we have the data, we imported it, we analyzed it using Cypher Query and data science library. And now that we have the analysis and the insight, we needed to show it to the client, not only in a report, which we also did. We provide them some of the insights and conclusions, but they wanted to interact with the data. So we needed to move it to a cloud architecture, for which we use AuroDB for Neo4j. And what you see here in the screen is this connection we used. And so we imported the data there, the graph, and we started to develop the visualization tool, which was like the last part of the process. For this, what we did first was to sketch the visualization tool, which are the tables that we're going to use, what kind of things you want to see. Do you want to see plots? Do you want to see scorecards? Do you want to show some part of the networks, and this type of discussions? So once we have a sketch that we all agree on, we started to building it in Neo4j until we reach like a final version of it. Is the one that we have now. So this is the end-to-end of the journey. But we have some challenges, of course. Not everything was happy and easy inside this journey. It was fun, but it wasn't easy. And so we wanted to share with you today some of the challenges we faced. The first one is the evolution graph. The client wanted a button where you click on it, a play button, and the graph will start to evolve in time and see how it evolves. It made sense for what they wanted to answer and what they wanted to share. The truth is that the Neo4j didn't have such a feature. But what we did was to build it using each HTML script. And so we built the network using HTML, in which we could use a play button and also a slider where you can choose the period of time you want to see. And with this trick, we imported inside Neo4j using iframe, which is a type of solution that you can insert inside Neo4j. So for the user, for the viewer of the dashboard, it's straightforward. They don't know it is not Neo4j or Neo4j. It looks pretty much like it is part of it, but actually it's not. It's an HTML page that is hosted inside GitHub, and we'll just put the link inside Neo4j, and it just replicated. So it was a workaround that worked, but it was challenging. The second thing is the Neo4j filter limitation. This was not something that stopped us or prevented or did something very awful to the project, but we would love to have another type of filters, sliders, and we had to use some text filter when we wanted to use period, like I said. Again, not something really stopping us or preventing us for moving forward, but it would have been a good thing. And the third thing was a Neo4j bug. So what happens to us? We had a bar plot, which had a legend, and the colors of the legend did not match with the labels inside the plot. So let's say that the legend had two colors, blue and green, and in the plot you will see orange and black. So they didn't match, and it was a bug. Really, we couldn't do something about it. So Pablo, like I said, I'm showing you here in the screen from the conversation Pablo had with the Neo4j staff. He told them, he reported the bug, and they immediately answered him like, we are going to fix it. And surprisingly, not surprisingly, but we were super surprised, very, very glad to find out that when we refreshed the system the following week, it was really solved. So it was a bug, it was a challenge, but really the Neo4j staff really quickly solved it. So happy ending, let's say. So this is the journey. So let me give you some final thoughts and ideas we have about this project. First, the potential that the Neo4j graph has to reveal and cover patterns for this specific type of data for public procurement. Especially when it comes to open data, you will see that you will have tables with data, but this is a good idea to have a different type of analysis, to find different type of patterns. So I think it's a really useful tool for this matter. And the third thing is that going from a structured data to graph database to find really different type of analysis was really easy, straightforward, not really easy, but straightforward. And I think it was a game changer. So we hope that we can continue working with Neo4j. Really enjoy the project. And yeah, I hope we can have some more projects like this in the near future. Gracias. Thank you very much. And I think we are on time, right?